Welcome back for week 6 lecture. I hope you're enjoying the class. I hope the topics that we're seeing in the class is relevant to you and making some sense in your real world interactions itself, both online and offline. I think privacy as a topic is very, very connected to both the online and offline world also. Okay. So and thanks for being thanks for being active on the mailing list for some of you, and thanks for asking questions. So what we'll see this week is we will actually look at these topics: voter privacy leaks. We will look at browser privacy leaks, and we'll also look at we've defined what is personally identifiable information before. If you remember that, what we're going to see is that can we actually use those personally identifiable information that is publicly available, and can you actually misuse it for something? Or what are the ways to use it? And probably there are ways to misuse it also. Can we actually do that? And I'll show you some examples of how it can be actually used or misused. You may be able to recollect some of the lectures earlier that we saw about social security number being predicted, how Facebook. How users can be re-identified on Facebook, all that. So that's the kind of things. But here we'll look at specific examples of publicly available information, particularly within India, and I'll show you some examples where we can actually use those information from publicly available data. So voter privacy leaks, browser privacy leaks, and profiling people, profiling users from publicly available information. That's the kind of content that we're going to cover this week. So generally also to see what all we have covered until now, right? We have covered in general. I think I'm guessing that by now you should have a good handle on what privacy is, how privacy is different from, so to say, security. What are the reasons why we should study privacy, fair information practices, right to privacy, contextual integrity, all of this. I think I'm guessing that you would be able to understand and sometimes even be able to talk about it with others, I think. Privacy enhancing technologies, privacy invasive technologies, social media privacy, identity resolution, cookies. We'll actually come back to cookies a little bit more also again later in the semester, looking at some specific studies on how cookies have been used to study user behavior. We also talked about anonymity. I think we spent quite a bit of a time in anonymity. Cost of reading privacy policies. Last week we also saw conducting different types of studies, user studies, think aloud studies, survey, focus group discussions, all those kind of methods by which you can actually collect data for studying privacy. I think it's also critical. I've been talking to you about projects. I haven't heard anybody send any email to me about projects. If you're thinking about it and if you have some cool ideas, please feel free to drop a email and we can catch up later. Last week, we also touched on how to read research papers. I actually gave you an exercise for reading research papers. So I hope you will be able to understand different roles that for reading privacy for reading the papers. What is secret ballot, right? I think most of you, I don't know whether most of you would have actually casted your vote in elections until now. But if you're sitting in UP, probably you may have casted your vote as we see this lecture. Secret ballot, right? Secret ballot is a concept where we, as in citizens, get control or protection from not sharing for whom we actually voted for. That is, I can't force you to share who you voted for. That's why if you see when we go to cast our vote, there's always this box which nobody sees. If you're looking at the electronic voting machine, as you're seeing in the slide, electronic voting machine, if you're casting your vote, there's always a box around it so that nobody sees who you are casting your vote for. Right? And the secret ballot is a great protection for democracy also. Right? Now I'm going to actually talk about how the secret ballot sometimes, particularly in the context of citizens sharing their casting behavior, sharing their political affiliation on social media, can actually be used for surveillance to understand how patterns of users casting vote. Again, secret ballot is an idea where we get protection for not being forced into revealing who we voted for. But I'm going to show you some examples where we are sharing our political affiliations, our political who we voted for, users by themselves. It's a question for you if you have if you voted in the 2019 elections. I mean, probably do a reaction on the mailing list. I'm guessing that many of you will be a first-time voter also, first-time voter now or first-time voter in 2019 elections. I'm sure some of you would have posted about your casting, that you casted your vote on social media. Even if you have not posted it, I'm pretty sure that you've seen others post on social media. Why do we post, right? Why do we? I mean, if you just think about it, your friends may have posted it, your colleagues may have posted it, you may have seen your relatives sharing it on social, saying that, oh, I inked my vote. Right? People share for sharing that they're doing their duty for democracy. Many reasons, right? People. I mean, you would also see people taking selfies, pictures with people in the booth, and with celebrities in the booth, and sharing it, saying that they're casting their vote. All of that. One question that I have for you is just think about it for a second before you move on to the slides later. Think for whether what can be inferred. Let's take if you actually shared that you casted your vote and some information with that tweet or Insta post. What do you think can be inferred from that social media post? So what we're going to look at is Twitter users. So what we did was 2019 elections, we collected a lot of data in that. One question that we started asking is, can we actually understand user preferences of who they voted for? Which is going back to my point of secret ballot. Can you find out whether secret ballot is not, so to say, users don't really think of secret ballot, even though they are casting their vote in a very closed environment, they end up actually sharing who they casted their vote for publicly. Okay. So here are some examples. Sometimes tweets talk directly about their voting preferences, sometimes indirectly. Here are some examples that you can see, which is people revealing that which political party they casted their vote for. Generally, the tweets would look like this, which is I voted for. There are some very common hashtags that we saw during the elections, which people were using. It's later in the slides also, you will see those hashtags. For example, hashtag I voted. Right. So I voted, and then location. Let's take Gachibowli for example. Your constituency that you will mention, right? And then hashtag Hyderabad, hashtag Telangana, and @ political party name, political party's Twitter handle, @ the candidate that they voted for, and @ prime ministerial candidate. This is one extreme, which is it is giving you all details, right? Which is location, candidate's name, prime ministerial candidate's name, and political party. So this, if you have, and that's the question I asked you to think about earlier, let's take you have access to this tweet, what can you do with it? Right? And this is one extreme, but just think about it, right? Even if you don't have all of this available, which is location, candidate name, prime minister candidate name, political party, all of that. If I just know the candidate's name that he or she voted for, or that they voted for, it is easy to find out a lot of other information, because there's, except for a few, there's a very unique relationship between candidate's name, location, candidate to political party, and candidate to the prime minister candidate. So therefore, if you just even say that I voted for @ so-and-so, that's good. You can actually infer a lot more information from just that tweet. So what all did we do in elections data? Right? Elections data, when we collected this 2019 elections data, we actually started collecting. The elections was in 2019 April, May. We started collecting data in September 2018. All right. And what all did we collect? We collected politicians snapshot. Politician snapshot is basically taking verified handle, because we took only verified handle because it is the confirmed way by saying that whoever we are collecting data is actually the person who he or she claims to be. Right? So what did we do? We took let's take politician A. We look at their followers, followings, tweets, likes, everything that you can actually get from a profile of Twitter API. We take that. Let's take today at 12 in the midnight. Tomorrow, again 12 in the midnight, we do exactly the same thing. What does this allow? This allows us to know that what change happened in this 24 hours. This is very useful because now I know in this last one day, the politician had increase in number of followers, increase in number of posts, increase in the number of likes that they got. All of this can be actually analyzed if you have this snapshot. Whereas now, if you go collect data for politician A right now, you're going to get only the snapshot what it is right now in Twitter, right? So that's why we did this snapshot from September 2018, September month till about April, May. So we get this snapshot of politicians for every day. I'm sure you can already think of what all super exciting questions that you can ask. Wait for a little while. The slides has pointers to all this data. You can probably take it and use it for doing some analysis also. The other one, which is where the large amount of data that we collected was the politician's snapshot, is not really large amount of data, right, in that sense. Hashtags is the one that we did, which is, for example, hashtag general elections 2019 was the official hashtag for the elections. So we start from there. We then expand the hashtag as we look at the other tweets with the general elections hashtags, right? So query expansion, general elections, meaning take a tweet of let's take 1,000 tweets with general elections. Look at what are the other hashtags. If they're relevant to elections, start collecting data for those hashtags. For example, from general elections 2019, we can actually go to hashtag elections 2019. Right. It could be political party name and 2019. You expand these hashtags and start collecting data for all the hashtags. We did this also. There were like thousands of hashtags that we actually collected data for. And again, those data is also made public. You could actually, so yeah, here is a pointer for the data sets. You could actually take all the, so I just put the screenshot for all the Lok Sabha elections data. You could take all the data from this website and play around with it. During elections, many things happened, right? Particularly during elections, many online things started happening. This 2019 elections was phenomenally influenced by, activity online was very high. And I'm guessing that 2024 elections is going to be even more online driven. Let's see how that happens. So this slide is actually showing you the details of how username changed during the elections. So if you see Chaukidar started, I'm sure you'll remember hashtag Mami Chaukidar was trending and was getting popular, all of that. And this is the one on the top is politicians. The one on the top is general Twitter users who are also changing their names with the Chaukidar. And this is interesting. This is interesting from a sort of say how campaigns work, how effective this campaign was, all that. But let's stick to the privacy questions also, right? We could actually use this data to identify users and also see how these people participated in campaigns, what campaigns did they, which side of the campaign were they, all of that we could actually infer from this. So we collected this data. Another common thing that you'll see. So generally in social media, you're going to see network, profile, content, right? Network is what the slide is. Profile is what the last slide that I showed you, handle everything. Content is just the post itself. So this is the slide that I have now is actually showing you the interactions between follower-followee relationship between the handles that are affiliated to the political party. Right. So BJP, AAP, INC, so different colors represent different political party, and the interactions, every edge is either a following or a follower. Again, this kind of information can be very, very useful in inferring what the interactions are, how dense the interactions are, all of that. I said a few minutes back, the 2019 elections was very much online. Here is an example. Here is some statistics to emphasize that point. X-axis is the political party. Y-axis is number of handles. And particularly, take a look at this. In 2014, only 71 handles that were involved in elections were verified. Whereas in 2019 elections, it is 1,268 handles. Just look at the magnitude, right? And again, these let's see what's happening in 2024. But this can be very, very useful because now I know PK's verified handle is actually the PK professor at IIIT Hyderabad. Whereas if you see other sort of say Ponguru or saying that professor at IIIT Hyderabad, you can't believe whether this is actually the PK who's teaching this online privacy class. Locational information. Locational information, again, we'll come back to this a little later in the semester, looking at how location information can be inferred from publicly available information. Remind me if I don't talk about it. There's a good example for Strava social media, where the location Strava is a health social media. It's a social media platform used by people who run, bike, all of that. And we'll talk about how you can actually use Strava to identify some information. This slide is actually giving you tweets with the location. Okay, think about how this can be used or misused for the thing that you want about the users involved in elections. Right, the larger the circle, the larger number of posts, all of that. This one. So I'm going through some of this in slightly detailed because you need to understand the kind of data that we can actually collect from social and then use it for the privacy question that we're asking. Right. So this slide is actually showing you account creation. Why this slide is interesting? Because if you just see at some dates, some weeks, there's like spike in the accounts that are getting generated on these platforms. Right. This is comparing different political parties. I showed you earlier. So actually, we've even seen the profile change sometime back in the semester, which is when we saw the identity resolution content, right? Where you want to infer pk.profgiri and Ponguru and Ponurangam, Kumaraguru are all same. This question, if you remember, we saw I think third week or fourth week. While seeing that question, we saw an important result, which showed that if you, not necessarily that I should do the comparison only now, which is what are my handles right now. If you know the handles that I had in the last 5 years or 10 years, or some delta time, the comparison, the resolution of the users can be much more effective. Right. So keeping that in mind, we also looked at is it the same in elections? People changed the maybe Chokidar, the thing that I showed you, how many people changed, what changes it had, what was the influence about it. All that is what is discussed in this paper. One of the other things that we ended up doing was that I had done some work. We had a master student who looked at 2014 elections, and we had built some dashboards for collecting social media data, all that. 2014 elections we took, and then we compared the data that we collected in 2019 and saw what was the differences. One comparison that I just showed you was this number of verified handles, right? In the similar way, you could actually do a lot more other comparisons. which political party was more active. I mean, as the strategy over the years changed, as the manifesto over the years changed, as the online presence made any difference in the political party internally, right? I mean, I think cool things would be, can you find out the organization structure using social media data itself? And or, which is the structure, is the real world structure same as in the online structure? Right? There is this hierarchy of people involved in elections or people involved in politics. Can you actually recreate that structure using social data? Right? And as I said before, we collected hashtags also. So we actually very, very closely analyzed hashtags from the elections also. You can take a look at this paper again. So what we did, coming to the privacy question, given that you understand this background of what all data is coming, what privacy, we are talking about secret ballot, we're talking about voter surveillance, all that, right? So with this data, why there was more information on social about elections? Because there was also the other side, right? The media houses also gave incentive for people to post and put some hashtags with it so that their tweets are getting posted by these media houses, all of that. So this is one example, but there were many other examples that were going on at that time. So these were the hashtags that I mentioned earlier, which is got inked, I voted, first vote. These are the different hashtags that were there for elections when people shared about them casting the vote. And then I already talked about user handles, mentions, candidate, and party. Different ways by which you can actually collect what they're talking about. Political party, location, constituency, all that. So with all that, if you filter the content with political party, with location, with constituency, with the candidate, with the prime minister candidate, all that, you'll get some content, right? Now let's look at that. So the two questions that we were interested in at that point in time was, can we use Twitter profile and some tweets that they had posted? Can we successfully find PII of an individual in the electoral rolls? You just went and shared hashtag I voted at the rate the candidate. Is that enough to find more personal information about you? Second, how can we detect the voter privacy leak from a tweet to inform the user and prevent it from happening in the future? Right. So what does this mean? So we also saw nudges, right? In identity resolution content, we also saw nudges where you can actually build browser extensions to give the user saying, don't do this. Even in the privacy nudges that we saw, timer nudge, right? So picture nudge or the sentiment nudge. We saw all of this. So those things, similar method. Can you build nudges? Can you build interventions so that when somebody is posting like this, you stop them, you nudge them saying what is possible, what could happen because they are actually sharing this information online, right? So those were the two questions that we were interested in. So here is what happened. So with all that data, we could actually go to take the user and actually go and figure out people. Driver's license number connected to that, connected to the polling data that is publicly available, which will also have the unique address, all of that, and connected to some driver license information. Right. I'll show you later in this lecture, in this week itself, what information, in this week or probably next week, look at how you can actually use publicly available information from government services only to actually put things together. Some work that was done to collect information that is publicly available on government services, and can you put them all together to create a profile and to use or misuse the same information. Right. So you will see that a tweet about a political party affiliation for casting the vote can actually be linked to your driver's license, to your address, all that. This is interesting, but this is also a little dangerous. No, just imagine this morning you went and casted your vote, and then a couple of days later somebody knocks at your door asking something about the affiliation, political party that you voted for. Right. So this is the intervention that you can actually build, which is give them a nudge saying, look, the information that you're sharing with this tweet can be used for identifying some personal information about you. the affiliation and everything. This intervention can be actually done for many other topics also. I'm just using elections and privacy here as one example, but I'm sure you can think of many other contexts where these kind of nudging can be very useful. If you're interested more, please feel free to take a look at this paper. It goes into details of more examples, statistics, and then more technical details of how we ended up actually doing this analysis. So I also looked at voter surveillance. So broadly, this topic is voter surveillance, which is what this work would fit in. And voter surveillance seems to be also very popular work that people are working on. So please take a look at if you're interested in figuring out using this publicly available information, whether you can get political affiliation of people. I think you should spend some time on these papers. So the next one, right? So now publicly available information we could actually get within the context of elections. Now let's look at browser extensions, right? This browser extension, so how many of you use, I'm sure many of us use browser extension, many of you use browser extensions. There are many reasons why we use browser extensions. It just makes our life simple, some nudges that we can get from it, some statistics that we can get from it, quotes that we can get from it. I think people use browser extensions for many, many reasons. Something that we got very excited about at some point in time was looking at browser extensions from a point of view of how it is revealing information about us. Right. So what we did. So this is the slide which says browser extensions are spying on you. 218 spying Chrome extensions installed by 2.4 million users were discovered out of the 43,000 Chrome web extensions. So Chrome extension, Google Chrome extension at that point in time had 43,000 tweets, 43,000 extensions. And we downloaded all the 43,000 extensions. And we kind of created a sandbox in which we could see what these extensions are doing. And in the process, we actually learned how these extensions were sending out requests, what information are they collecting, for example, some calendar extension asking for the location, right, lat long of where the phone is, all of that. Why do we need a calendar app to know where I am location? You can make an argument that, oh, look, it'll do the time zone, all that. But how many of us actually need those kind of features, right? Automatically detecting where my location is and changing the time zone of my watch, my laptop, everything accordingly. Not many of us would need those kind of features. So this one, looking at the extensions, we wanted to understand whether these extensions are spying, whether spying is sending out some personal information about me. How much are they doing? What are they doing? Can we actually find it? Can we quantify it? Those are the questions that you can actually think about. So Web of Trust. Web of Trust is a service where you can send a request for a domain, and it'll actually give you some details about the domain, which is how credible the domain is, how many people have said positive about this domain. Such kind of information comes as it's an API request again. PII.ac.in returns with some scores. You can decide how to use this scores in deciding what you want to do with it. Spying extensions can steal browsing history. Next slide also will show you some examples. Browsing history, IP address, geolocation, online social media access tokens, and domains visited. Right, these browser extensions, you may be using an extension which let's take one of the popular extensions that we saw during our analysis was this virtual hug extension. Right, so that was very popular. Right. And just imagine if you understand that this extension is actually taking your Facebook and Twitter username, password, and sharing it. Or it is looking at all the websites that you are looking at, browsing history, and sharing it to a third party. Right. So what we saw was browsing history, leakage of behavioral patterns like private documents, on services like Google Docs, everything, those links can go away. Geolocation, which is your lat long, your home location, country location, that can actually go away. OSM access tokens, username, password, API keys, those are also vulnerable. and some of the information that the extensions have access to is cookies, history. I mean, with the strength of these browser extensions, they can actually get access to as much as information from your machine or from your browser. This graph also was interesting because you will see that the spying extensions, which is actually in red color, right? So this is spying extension get very high ratings similar to other benign extensions. These are getting compared as the yellow one is all extensions, the red one is the spying one. And if you just take a look at it, right, there are extensions. So let's take if 4 was to be called as, oh, very useful, helpful, I would use type of extension. There are like so much of extensions which are rated more than 4, which are also spying. It'll be interesting to see who are these people who are rating it, what kind of collusion is happening there. But for now, think about how many people are actually, how much of these extensions are getting rated, even though they're rated high, even though they're actually spying. So these were some broader conclusion that we had, which is 12 out of 218 extensions received negative comments. 2 out of top 10 developers of browser extensions were actually part of this spying extensions. Yeah, so you can also apply some machine learning model to understand the extensions, understand the user behavior, all that. So if you're interested, that's the paper. This paper got some super interesting attention when we did this work. So the next part, what I wanted to talk about is using publicly available information. Publicly available information is something that we already saw. Personal information publicly available. I just showed you some examples of voter in the context of voter surveillance, in the context of elections, all that. I'm guessing that many of you would have taken long distance train. I'm going to use that train example to show you how we can actually use publicly available information to have a conversation with people when you're getting onto a train. For example, the train chart generally has information like age, gender, source, destination, seat number, first name, last name, and a PNR number. If you were somebody who's getting onto a train and seeing that I'm on the train also, I'm sure you can start a conversation there, right? How can you actually get information? So in this case, probably if you've taken this class, so there's already a connection, so you probably would hopefully visually at least recognize me, and therefore we can have a conversation. But imagine if you have somebody whom you don't know is in the train, but you want to strike a conversation. Is that possible? Can you do it? What level of information can you actually get? That's what we're going to look at.